My friends and families, once again, I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this week's class. In this week's class, we are actually going to talk about a very important topic on empathy. Empathy, empathy, very important component, right? And like every day in all the classes that we've done so far, I always like to begin the class with a metaphor, right? So I'm going to use a metaphor for this empathy class, and I want you to pay attention carefully, right? Empathy is the bridge between understanding people and inspiring them. Please hear me and hear me well. So empathy is the bridge between understanding people and inspiring them. And this is where I want everyone to pay attention. Remember, in week 1 and 2, or week 2 and 3 for that matter, we were looking more of an inward work, which is self-awareness and self-regulation. That is inwardly. You were looking at yourself inwardly. But today's class in particular, we are actually going to look outwardly. So in our learning today, we are going to look at what is empathy, the 3 types of empathy. We are going to look at the neuroscience of empathy. We are going to take a look at a business case in empathy. And then we are going to develop 3 practical skills and personal plan of action in order for us to be very empathetic in our leadership journey. So this is our way of looking at the subject. Now, what is our learning objectives for this class? Our learning objective is that at the end of this course, every individual in this class should be able to identify and define the key components of empathy within the framework of emotional intelligence. And at the same time, you should be able to analyze how empathy impacts interpersonal relationships and communications in various personal and professional environments. So what I'm going to ask you right now, as by now I'm sure every one of you have come to appreciate and understand that I don't come to teach. I engage and I facilitate, and I bring you along as co-facilitators and co-students. So let's begin with just one word in the chat. What does empathy means to you? What does empathy means to you? Type in the chat. Again, against the premise that we are not going to check Google or AI. In our own thinking and in our own learning, in one word, what does empathy means to you? Please type in the chat. What does empathy means to you? Please put in the chat. I hear compassion. What else? I hear compassion. I hear compassion. What else? Feelings, solidarity, trying understanding others for the actions, understanding, feelings, what else? Connection, being in the shoes of others. Wonderful. The rest of you, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from everyone. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes. What else? These are wonderful responses that every one of you is sharing, right? So we will go deeper to understand or turn this one word phrase care into an actual action of learning, right? So I just remembered that, sometimes it's good to do a quick knowledge check based on the things that we have learned. So why don't we do a quick knowledge check before we go deeper into empathy? So this is more like an icebreaker just for you to relax. And so the first question in knowledge check will be, in your own words, what is self-awareness and why do we call it the foundation of emotional intelligence? I just need one person or two people I need one person to come on microphone to speak. And I need two people, if not everybody, to type in the chat. If nobody comes on the mic to speak, I'll call one person by my choice. So if you know that you are closer to me or you are my friend, know that I'm going to call you, right? Which means that everybody in class is my friend. So no, I'm going to call you. But I need one person to come on mic to speak, and then I need the rest of you to put in the chat, in your own words, what is self-awareness and why do we call it the foundation of emotional intelligence? Let me hear from you, please. Let's not waste too much time at all. We have enough to cover today. Okay. So nothing is being typed and nobody is speaking. Okay. Then let's begin with my first friend, Vida. Vida Minta, can you come on microphone and tell us what is self-awareness and why do we call it the foundation of emotional intelligence? Vida, if you are speaking, we can't hear you. I see you have your muted, but you are not speaking. Okay, Vida, are you there? Do we have Vida? Okay, we will pass Vida and then we will go to, let's see here. Pearl, Patricia Pearl Ankra. Patricia Pearl Ankra. Can you tell us what is self-awareness and why do we call it the foundation of emotional intelligence? Okay, today be today. I see Bella says that basically knowing yourself. And then I see Idris who says self-awareness is I get me. Wonderful. I see Joy said recognizing and understanding my emotions. And Mary says that self-awareness is identifying and managing one's emotions to help relate with others and to make sound decisions, right? And I also see that James said identify and knowing one's strengths and weaknesses. And Adima says that understanding your thoughts and behaviors. Ivy mentioned knowing yourself inside out. And Dominic says self-awareness is identifying and understanding your own emotions. Thank you all for sharing.
Prof.
Yes, Vida, I know you were
Sorry,
having
my
some
network
technical.
was disturbing. Sorry.
It's okay. You can still go ahead to talk.
Okay, so self-awareness is the ability to understand your own thoughts and your
Mhm.
emotions
Good.
and the values.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We are grateful. Right?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So, yes, all of you are right. Self awareness is the ability to recognize your own emotions, right? And so this is critical for you to be able to pay, because we have said that it is the foundation of emotional intelligence, because without that you cannot in any shape or form lead other people, right? And I see here B Brown has also mentioned that identifying and knowing yourself and how you can manage your immediate environment at a particular point in time, right? And Captain Tabitha says that self awareness is called the foundation of emotional intelligence because it is the starting point everything else is built on, right? I can't manage my emotions if I don't recognize or can't read other people's well, if I am not first tuned into my own impulses, if I don't notice it. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I love the responses. I love the engagement and I appreciate that. So let's see. The next one is here. The next knowledge check. What do the four letters of stop stand for? And why should a leader use it? Right? What do the four letters of stop stands for? And why should a leader uses it? I know I'm stretching your mind, but that's how we learn, right? And I think Nairo's response came a little later after we have moved on, but we still read that self awareness is being honest with myself. It is knowing what I feel and why I feel it, and how my emotions influences my action. It is the foundation of emotional intelligence because I cannot manage what I do not first understand. Knowing myself has helped me to understand others better. Bravo. Thank you for sharing that. Right. So now the next question which I put here is that what do the four letters of stop stand for and where should a leader use it? Again, can I get one person to save the whole class by responding? Otherwise, the whole class must type. So I just need one person who will be the savior of the class. Jump in and just give a response, and the whole class will be spared from typing or writing. Who
Hello,
will be that
Prof.
person? Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so the S means you stop. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
The S means stop before replying. Assuming you are being given a task to, you have to stop and then identify it before you reply.
Got
You
you.
pause. Yes, you pause,
Mhm.
identify it before you reply.
Okay. So
And
you
the
said
T
what?
means you taking a breath.
Okay.
Yes, please. And then the O is observe. Observing maybe your anger or your feelings. And then you
Wonderful.
notice, yes, notice what triggers the feelings.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
then
So,
the P is
mhm,
to proceed.
exactly. Thank
Yes,
you.
please.
Vida have saved the entire class. Please, I want everyone in class go into the emoji, look for the drop the mic symbol or your favorite emoji to appreciate Vida for saving the class from typing plenty. So please, every one of you, find the best emoji to appreciate Vida. Thank you all for doing so. Right, doing these things, appreciating others, encouraging others is all part of learning. So thank you, Vida, for stepping forward to speak and to save the rest of the class from typing plenty. Right? Okay, great. So I know there are two more questions, but I'm going to skip that because of time, so that we can move forward. And so technically, we are going to begin the class with an icebreaker again here. Now, this icebreaker, how full is your heart today? Everyone, please pay attention. How full is your heart today? Empathy starts with honesty about our own state. So pick the heart that matches yours right now, and share in the chat. So the engagement question is that what made you choose that heart, and what does it tell you about the empathy you can afford today? So please put in the chat your heart that represents who you are right now in this class. Please put in the chat. Please put in the chat. I see Richardson said, guarded heart. I see Joy Na Ayikale. I love her name so much. Anytime I mention her name, I mention it so smooth. Na Ayikale. Right? Right? Yes. So she said, recharging the heart. Right? Recharging the heart. And please, everyone, as you put there, look at the inscription there, right? So I see open heart from Adima, right? Which means that connected and ready to give, right? So when you put, remember what is there? I see B. Brown also said open heart, connected to give, right? And then the guarded heart, say a little reserve today, right? And the heavy heart carrying some heavy burden on you, right? And I see recharging, need to receive before I give, right? So I see open heart, a lot of open heart, guarded heart, and all that. The rest of you have not said anything or typed anything. I want to make sure you are engaged in this class and not log on and throw your device somewhere and far away from us. So folks like, let me see those who haven't said anything in this group at all since we began. Folks like Patricia, I want to hear from you, right? Let's see here who else hasn't said anything in class that I think other than Patricia, everyone is engaging. So Patricia, I don't know where you are. If you are here, please get into the mood. And then Ivy, if you can, or Captain Tabitha, if one of you can reach out to Dr. Patrick Essien. I don't see him in class, and I don't see Captain Elizabeth also in class. Please, those of you who have connections with them, reach out to them to make sure they are in class. All right, I see open heart, a lot of guarded heart and open heart. So this is good, right? This is all good. And so let's thank you for sharing that with us, and let's dive straight into our actual class, which officially begins now. Right? So we are beginning with empathy in emotional intelligence. Empathy in emotional intelligence. I did mention earlier that empathy is the ability to understand other people's feelings and see things from their point of view. It is the ability to understand other people's feeling and see things from their point of view. You see, recognizing other person's emotional state and understand why they experience a thing is critical in your leadership. So I want you to pay attention to two critical things that was said in this description. We are talking about recognizing, which means what? What are they feeling? Recognizing and understanding why are they feeling it. This is very important. This is very important. In being an empathetic leader, being an empathetic spouse, be an empathetic manager or supervisor, it is important to pay attention to two things as you deal with the people around you: recognizing and understanding. Recognizing and understanding. When you recognize, you are asking yourself, what are they feeling? And in understanding, why are they feeling it? So, in the workplace, if you are a supervisor or a manager, and you notices that your top performing employee, right, your top performer employees' emails have become short and flat, or you realize that somebody who is heavily engaged in the work, or you suddenly realize that your colleague at work has immediately withdrawn from you, it is very important to recognize that there may be the possibility of discouragement around this person. And you need to pay attention to change some things in order for their, if it is about workload which is becoming too much, then you need to recognize that to change it. The same is equally applicable to relationships. A husband, a boyfriend, a fiancé notices that his spouse or partner has gone quiet after a phone call with a family. Please pay attention. This happens to us on daily basis, and I don't want you to miss that. That somebody you have a relationship with, a real relationship with, you notice that this person has gone quiet after a phone call with a family member. And suddenly you recognize this sadness rather than anger. What you do is that you gently ask about the call instead of taking the silence to be personally. Very important. I have told people around me many times, I am not the Holy Ghost to know how you feel, except you gave me the impression for me to recognize how you feel. So please understand that. And so empathy involves being able to recognize other person's emotional states and understand why they are experiencing them. Thank you, Adima. No assumptions. Never under any circumstance assumed in the space of showing empathy. You miss the point. If you recognize it, that's why I am telling everyone in class today that two things must be part of your toolkit in being an empathetic leader: recognizing and understanding it. Two key things: recognizing and understanding. Recognizing, you recognize because it makes you ask yourself, what are they feeling? And understanding why are they feeling it. Very important. All right, so what we are going to do now, I like to incorporate videos to help the class gain more perspective. So here is a short video that I want you to watch. And this story came from one of my great authors, somebody I love to read her book, Brené Brown, right? So Brené Brown is this amazing, wonderful scholar, and she has done a lot of work on emotional intelligence. So let's watch this brief video, and then we'll come back.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Wonderful. Great. So, what is this one thing about the video, or what one thing did the video showed you that you have experienced before on either giving or receiving end of empathy? If you really paid attention to the video, what one thing the video showed that you have experienced on either the giving or receiving end of empathy? I see care. I see care from Dr. Elvis. I see care. What else? I see care. Thank you, Dr. Elvis. I see connection, right? I see connection as well from Adima and from Joy, right? I see care from Vida, right? So great. These are very important. Yes, and I see connection again. These are very important tools that you are going to learn as we move forward. I see care and connection from Dr. Kendrick, right? These are things that you will have to develop on as we dive deeper into this whole portion. And I see Pearl mention that love and affection. Yes, love and affection. And I see Harrison mention connection as well, right? These are things that they come, but I like, you see, I like the way she put it, right? Say, oh my goodness, I have miscarriage. Yeah, somebody can't even conceive. So at least you know that you could get pregnant. Or my marriage is falling apart. Well, at least you knew that you are married. So what attracts people to get married? You got some. Right? So you have to look at things from, that's why in this course, you will learn something on perspective talking. And you will appreciate why perspective talking is important. Right? And I see Captain Tabitha means understanding and show of love. Yes, very important. So let's move forward. Let's move forward here. Now, yes, and it's understanding with passing judgment, right? I believe you wanted to say without passing judgment, right? So now empathy, because we have already identified and defined empathy, I want you to understand that there is a huge difference as we watch in the video. There's a huge difference between empathy, sympathy, and compassion. And most of the time, leaders, supervisors, managers, lovers tend to confuse these three. One of the things that I want you to learn from this class or going forward from this class is never to confuse these three. Please, 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 please pay attention. The difference is where you stand and what you do. Otherwise, they may appear the same, but they are not. So this model or this particular slide, it's meant to unlock this thing for you to get a deeper understanding so that from today, you will never make the same mistake others have made. Sympathy, it looks down into the pit and says, I am sorry you are down there. Right? So what is sympathy? Sympathy is feeling for someone from a distance. I can sympathize with you without necessarily empathizing with you. How many of you have had opportunity where people have sympathized with you, but they never empathize with you? How many of you, if you have, say yes, I have, or give me a thumbs up, something to show that people, based on what I'm describing to you about sympathy, right, is a feeling for someone from a distance. Right? I had a friend who was here in the US and he has been in the US for what, 20 years or something, and suddenly he went to drink alcohol and he was driving, and in the drive, unfortunately for him, he was stopped by the police, and in the US you dare not drive and drink, right? And then they charge him with DUI, and then he has lived in America with family here for 20 years. Guess what? He has been deported and is back in Ghana as we speak now. So from a distance, I sympathize with him. Right? So the same is applicable to all of you. You can sympathize. That's why I'm sorry you are going through that. It is sympathizing with people. Please understand it. Don't confuse the two. I'm taking time to explain that here for you. And empathy, it's you climb climbs in and say, I am here with you, right? Feeling with someone, entering into their world, right? That sound exhausting, right? I am here for you. How many times have people reached out to you to tell you this, that I'm so sorry you are going through this, but listen, I am here with you. I am standing with you. I am showing up every day to make sure you are good. How many times have you done that to someone, and has somebody done that to you? I'm not talking of we coming to eat some kenke and some I'm trying to look for a food that will make you laugh. I've lost all my thoughts about food, right? Right? So some Adima, right? Some cassava leaves, right? Some cassava leaves. When I was in Sierra Leone, I eat a lot of cassava leaves, right? Right? So that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about feeling with someone, entering into their world. How many of you, please, can someone give an experience where they have actually, or someone has actually had that feeling in entering into your world, to show that the person was very empathetic with you? Is there someone want to share an example? A very brief, we don't want to dwell too much. An example where somebody have really, or either you have entered or someone have entered into your world to show empathy. I mean, like empathy. And I'm not talking of somebody show up one day to encourage you and tap your shoulder and that's it. No. Has anybody have that experience?
Okay, so I'll go.
Please.
So about a month ago, I was at work, and then one of my colleagues, one of my classmates, in fact, my JHS mate, came with a condition, and she needed a CT scan. I was actually very sad because I felt like, no, this is someone that has sat in class for some years back, and then see her how she was looking all through and everything. I was so sad. So I took it upon myself to make sure that when the report was ready, I sent it to her, asked her to immediately show it to the doctor. From then, I started checking up on her, knowing her progress, whether she was undergoing physiotherapy, how the treatment was going, until right now she's fine. The last time I called her recently, she was like she's doing very well and that she's not weak anymore and that she's going back to work and she's her normal self again. So that's it.
Wow. God bless you. God bless you. And for all you know, right, when you were doing this, you didn't even recognize that you were being empathetic as a leader, but you did. And so the purpose of this class is to reinforce that empathetic self, right? So thank you for sharing that. Now, the next one I also want us to pay attention to, it's compassion, right? Compassion. Compassion adds, it lets us find a way out together, right? So empathy plus the will to act. So now the question to you, Mary, is that based on what I have just said, did you think you were compassionate or you were empathetic? Look at what I said in the under the compassion. I hear you. Let us work together to the next steps, right? So empathy, plus the will to act is what becomes compassion. So Mary, to you, do you think you actually exhibited empathetic leadership or compassionate leadership?
Sorry, I think I exhibited compassionate leadership because I moved from empathy, that is being where she has been before, because everybody has been sick before. And then the will to act was to ask her if she was taking her medications, if she had questions, she should seek the advice of her doctor. She should try and go through whatever physiotherapy that she's going through. She shouldn't try and do self-medication to complicate her issues. And if she had any challenge understanding anything, she could ask me, and then I will give her the appropriate advice whether to go back and see her doctor and ask the relevant questions that she needed in order to get better. So I think I went beyond being empathetic.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And we will go deeper and you will understand that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So class, I want you to understand this, right? Every or the three form of or the types of empathy, it's equally important. None is wrong. And that's the more reason why leaders or most people tend to confuse them. Because when that happens, leaders often offer sympathy when people need empathy. Please understand that. Leaders, those of you who are leaders, managers, spouses, we tend to offer sympathy when people actually need empathy. And empathy when the moment called for compassion. I will explain all that in details. So an example will be in the workplace. An employee misses a target during a family crisis. What happened? Sympathy sends a kind email. Pay attention. Let me start all over again. In the workplace, where one of your employees or your team members misses a target during a family crisis, sympathy sends a kind email. Empathy has the honest conversations. And what does compassion do? Compassion also redistributes this month's workload. Right? So when you want to prove that you are a very compassionate leader and you recognize that a member of your team has lost a beloved one, it is a role of a leader to be compassionate by redistributing the workload for the rest of the people so that that individual will not worry of coming back to work with tons of work waiting for him or her. So understand that. That's why I said a sympathy will just to send a very kind email. We are sorry for what you are going through. We are here if you need help. That's sympathy. That's not empathetic. The same is applicable. The same is applicable in relationships. When a spouse fails at something they attempted bravely, empathy sits with disappointment, and compassionate helps plan the second attempt. How many of you parents here have challenged your words and your children to say that, listen, we tried it, it didn't work, we are not giving up. We will try it until you master this. How many of you yourself have gone through a moment where you felt let down or disappointed, but you never gave up? This is where empathy becomes critical. So, for our engagement question, recall the last time someone came to you upset. Which of the three did you actually offer? Please put in the chat and be honest. I have told you in this class, I don't know what you know, but your dishonest answer will take away the ability to gain from this class. So the question to you is that recall the last time someone came to you upset. Which of the three did you actually offer? Sympathy, empathy, or compassion? I see Harrison said compassion. What about the rest of you? Again, be as honest as possible, because I don't even want to know the story or not, but I want an honest answer from you. I see sympathy, right? The rest of you, what did you do? Think about the last time someone came to you upset. Which of the three did you offer? I see compassion. Who else? I see empathy, right? Who else? Let me hear from you, please. I see sympathy, right? And whilst you are providing these answers, what I want you to do is to keep in mind the explanation that I have given. Right? I say, Captain Tabitha, show me compassion. Oh, thank God. Captain, I'm also waiting for you to show me some compassion. Oh, so please, you better show me. I'm just kidding, right? Right? I see empathy. I see empathy. I see sympathy. I see compassion. Very good. Now, the reason why I want you to be doing this in this class is because I am helping you to cast your mind back to the last time somebody was upset in front of you. And your reaction and your way you manage the upset will determine whether or not you were sympathetic. You know, like, yeah, I really, 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 I appreciate what you are going through. Unfortunately, there's very little I can do about it. A member of your team as a supervisor comes to you and looking for a day off. I tell managers all the time in my trainings, never look for opportunity to deny them their request. Instead, work through opportunity to grant them if it is possible. So you don't say that, you know what, I know how you feel. I know you bought a plane ticket. I know you've done this, but unfortunately, we can't grant it at this time because we are short-staffed. You are being sympathetic and not empathetic. You should be able to pay attention to how can I get this done to get you what you are looking for, even though it is difficult, right? Instead of saying that I feel you, but I can't help you, you can say something like, you know what, tough. Listen, let's talk to one or two of your colleagues who will be willing to take extra work in your absence. Or if somebody can come in to cover for you in your absence, if that is workable, then at least we can work something out. You are being compassionate in your response. So those of you parents, when your children come to you and they say something, you say no. And they say why? You say because I say so. You are not being compassionate or empathetic. And I say, Captain says the compassion. When a parent got angry at me for telling him to wait a minute for me to inform the person on the emergency call as I stand in for her before taking out a bird from the child's ear. Yes, right? That is this. This is where you bring real life experience to bear. So thank you all for sharing that. Now, so far, are we getting the meat from the class? If so, please let me know to show that we are. Give me a thumbs up if we are getting better. You are understanding. Give me thumbs down if we need to clarify some things. Just to know that you are getting the meat. Like I have said many times, I don't like to waste students' time because your time is precious. If you leave your time to come to class, I have to make sure you get the best of the class. Right? Yesterday night, I told Nanajua here that I took almost 3 hours to prepare for this class. I prepare for every class, trust me. I don't just show up. So I want to make sure you are getting the best of everything. Thank you so much. Thank you for the thumbs up. So far, I haven't seen a thumbs down, so I will assume I'm doing well. Okay, now that we have talked about this, now what I want us to go now is we are going a little deeper from what we have studied. We are going to learn the 3 types of empathy. Please, Please. If right now there is light off, or if right now the internet goes down and we stop the class, if you get these three things I'm about to teach you, we are done. So I want every distraction, every multitasking to stop. I want you to pay attention, because this is the meat of the entire class when it comes to empathy. And this is what I'm about to give you. The three types of empathy, right? Cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and compassionate empathy. What is cognitive empathy? Basically, cognitive empathy is I understand you. Cognitive. Emotional empathy is I feel with you. Emotional. And compassionate is I act for you. Please listen again. Cognitive empathy is I understand you. Emotional empathy is I feel with you. And compassionate empathy is I act for you. Now, I haven't moved the slide yet because I want you to begin to diagnose yourself as we go. Which types comes naturally for you? Please put in the chat, because I'm going to explain, but I want to explain after you have chosen which comes naturally for you. Listen again. Cognitive empathy basically means I understand you. Emotional empathy is I feel with you. And compassionate empathy, I act for you. Which of them comes naturally for you? I see B. Brown said all three. I see Adjoa said emotional empathy. I see Naayikale says that emotional empathy. I see Captain Tabitha said compassionate empathy. Right? So the rest of you, let me hear which comes naturally. Again, remember what I have said from the premise of this class, that the honest response will help you identify your blind spots. So I see Captain Betty says that emotional empathy, right? The rest of you, let me hear from you. Richardson says compassionate empathy. The rest of you, let me hear from you. Florence, let me hear from you. The rest of you, Adima said cognitive and emotional empathy, right? Naira said compassionate empathy, right? So now all of you are sharing your default approach. Florence says emotional empathy, right? All of you, you are sharing your perspective of the things that comes easily for you technically. And Harrison says that cognitive and compassion. So your default. So let's take them one after the other as we learn deeper and deeper into it. Cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand another person's perspective or mental state without necessarily sharing the feeling. Please pay attention. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand another person's perspective or mental state without necessarily sharing that feeling. You will consider someone who has a cognitive empathy as someone who is a negotiator and a strategist. So please pay attention. It is the negotiators and strategic form of empathy. And it can be practiced deliberately by asking, what does this situation look like from their seat? That is cognitive empathy. It's business for them. You know. So an example which you see on the screen. Imagine a co-worker is stressed about an upcoming presentation. Using cognitive empathy, you might think, I understand why she's feeling nervous. Public speaking can be daunting, especially when it is important project. That is cognitive empathy. Right? That will be the exact response that you may want. But for someone demonstrating cognitive empathy, the response will be, I understand how you see this. Presenting to the board must feel very intimidating. Now, do you guys see the difference? Please pay attention. Do you see the difference there? Do you see the difference? Because the example here is that somebody, a co-worker, is stressed. And so the normal cognitive, using the cognitive, but you may think that the response that one may just have to give is that I understand why she's feeling nervous, because we all feel nervous. Public speaking can be daunting, especially if you are doing this for this such important job. But in demonstrating cognitive empathy, you say like what? I understand how you see this. Presenting to the board must feel very intimidating. Now, do you guys see the strategy here for cognitive empathy? Anybody paying attention to what I'm saying? Right? The same thing in relationships. You are a spouse. You realize that your spouse, right, has become reluctant about a big purchase. Right? It is not necessarily about the purchase, but sometimes anxiety can get in. And so you need to be very careful in your tone so that your tone would not even weaken the person. So cognitive empathy without warmth becomes manipulation. Understanding people is a trust, not a lever. Anybody heard what I just said? Please, you walk away from cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy without warmth can become manipulation. Understanding people is a trust and not a lever. So many of us in this class, I will not pretend that we are angels. We are human beings. We sometimes show cognitive empathy for our own selfish gain. Right? I felt that I am supposed to be the one to have been given this opportunity to present and not Captain Bella. And so once I see Captain Bella very nervous, I will have to use the cognitive empathy to show I care. But in cognitive empathetic feeling, I will have to be very strategic and negotiating, meaning that I will present it in such a way and manner that my response will cause even more doubt for her. How many of you, based on what I have just said, recognize that people have shown cognitive empathy when you have reached out to them? How many of you have? Again, I'm forcing you to cast your mind to the people around you. How many of you have realized that, oh, so the last time I reached out to A, B, and C, he actually didn't really care. What he did was that he was showing me cognitive empathy, because he said to me, presenting, I understand how you see this. Presenting to the board must feel very intimidating. Is this person really, 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 really encouraging me, or making me see the picture in a way and manner that will even affect me the more? Listen, class, you guys are too quiet for me, right? Thank you. Ivy said it makes you more nervous. Yes, Ivy, it makes you more nervous. A cognitive, empathetic person will make you more nervous when you shouldn't have. And that is all that I'm trying to say to this class. Pay attention to the people who show you empathy and ask yourself, what type of empathy are they showing me? Very important. Anybody have a question regarding the cognitive empathy? Any question regarding the cognitive empathy? Any question?
Oh, hello.
Yes.
Prof, please. All right. So, with it still sort of sounds. How will you know that someone who is practicing cognitive empathy cares? Because at the end of the day, when it feels like you have someone who is constantly like that, it makes me feel like the person is manipulative. Because I'm really not sure how you'll be able to identify that there's a tone of care, or there's a little bit of how do we call it, care the person is showing in their tone. So I really still don't get the difference between the cognitive empathy and the manipulation, because I feel like it's sort of the same.
Very good. Yes, that is the reason why I said that cognitive empathy without warmth can become manipulative. And the reason it can become manipulative, it's because of what we have said from the beginning. The beginning, what did we say? We said that cognitive empathy is the ability to understand another person's perspective or mental state without, pay attention, excuse me, to the key word, without necessarily sharing the feeling. So if I come to tell you that, yeah, I understand how you feel, because guess what? Presenting in front of the board can be daunting or can be intimidating. I am not feeling that for you. But look at the example I gave earlier on the screen. I said that you may think that a cognitive empathy should be like, well, I understand why you're feeling nervous. Public speaking can be daunting, especially when it is an important project. So you see, the second brief response is that I understand how You see this, not how I feel it, how you see it, because you are seeing it because you are unprepared, because you have not done it before. So this is how you see it. Presenting to the board must feel very intimidating. Oh, trust me, when you get into the place, you will see. Listen, once upon a time in my life in America, I wanted to work so badly in the hospital at the time. And I went to for an interview in Walter Reed. Now, Walter Reed, for those of you who don't know where Walter Reed is in the state of Maryland, between DC and Maryland, and it is where the president of the United States go to hospital or go for physical care and all that. So that tells you it is the most advanced hospital on earth. Now, when I went into the interview room, it was an interview panel, and every person in the room at least was a 3-star general, and every one of them was wearing their military or ceremonial cloth. So the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the National Guard, just name it, every one of them. As I opened the room and I entered the room, nobody even told me to be intimidated. I got intimidated immediately by the presence of these generals. Did I get a job? I did not. When I came home, I told my wife, I said, my goodness, how did they expect me to pass this interview with all these soldiers, military commanders, with all their positions displayed on their chest for me to? And my wife said to me, it is okay. Sometimes these people do this just to intimidate you. Right? You see, she could have said that, oh yeah, appearing before military people, my goodness, you will be intimidated. But she did not do that because she has come to appreciate how to empathize with people without being cognitive. Right? So great. I see some few responses in the chat. Let me see. Mary said, it gives me the impression that person don't care. Man, listen, cognitive, empathetic people indirectly don't care about you. That is why they don't share. They don't necessarily share in the feelings. And then Harris is a prof. I have a question. With the same example, if I respond by saying, I understand how you see this, presenting to the board can be very intimidating. I have been there, but trust me, when I say you will sail through it smoothly, is this considered cognitive empathy? And is the one that does not make you more doubtful, but instead increase your confidence to the presentation? Hold that thought, Harrison, for the next 2 slides on the differences between the 3, and you get your answer right there. And I see Idrisu said the person understands your situation but does not care. Yes, the person understands, and the reason is because they don't necessarily share your feelings. So let's move forward. The next character, and I hope you guys are taking note. I'm giving you something golden. The next character here, it's emotional empathy. Emotional empathy means actual feeling what another person is experiencing, sharing the emotions as if it were your own. It creates connection and trust, but unmanaged, it leads to emotional flooding and burns out, which is why self-regulation from our model 3 came first before this class. Understand this. And I see Dr. Elvis said, Prof, could cognitive empathic statement be the same as sarcastic statement? You just got it right. Exactly. They are very sarcastic. They do it in subtle manner that you will not even realize that they pretend. Well, I think that sarcastic will be maybe too strong a word, because with sarcastic, Dr. Elvis, it's obvious when people are very sarcastic, you know their intent. But with cognitive empathetic feeling, if you're not careful, you will not even recognize their intent, because they do it so subtle that you will not even recognize that they don't have any feeling for what you are doing. They are just being there, right? So emotional empathy involves actual feeling of what other person is experiencing. Right? So an example of emotional feeling or emotional empathy. Your friend's pet has just passed away. With emotional empathy, you might feel a sense of sadness and loss yourself, even if you didn't know the pet well. Right? So, brief response demonstrating emotional empathy is that I feel your pain. Losing a pet is like losing a family member. Emotional empathy, deep trust connection. Yes. So class, understand this. Emotional empathy, it's when you actually, that is the key word, actually feels what other person is experiencing. It is the ability to share someone else's emotions and feeling as if they were your own. The question to you is that, have you ever experienced emotional empathy genuinely before? If yes, glory be to God. If no, has someone else gave you the impression that they were emotionally empathetic to your situation? And what do they do? I see Captain Tabitha say yes. And what did they do? If it is you or someone else. Another good example will be like in the workplace, when a colleague voice cracks while sharing bad news. You feel the lump in your own throat and your response shortens automatically. When you have this, that is emotional empathy. That is emotional empathy. The same is applicable to relationships. Your spouse's excitement about a small win at work genuinely lifts your own mood, and celebrating them doubles their joy. I am giving you a reason to visualize a moment in your life when you have either experienced or given emotional empathy. Because I am teaching the class to understand that emotional empathy is feelings. I don't have to be the one, but I can feel it. How many of you have burst into excitement when somebody calls you or somebody said, guess what? I just got promoted right now. Captain Tabitha, Captain Bella, before you were promoted to become a captain, I am sure when they pin you as a captain, you caught somebody, you shared that experience with someone. Please, am I right or wrong? Forgive me if I'm wrong. But I believe you called someone or you shared with somebody. Right? Those of you who are managers, those of you who are running organization, you did share with somebody. And what was the person's reaction? I am casting your mind back to something, everyone in class. Think of a time when you break a news to someone, whether good or bad news. What was their reaction? Their reaction will tell you whether or not they were cognitive empathetic or they were emotional empathetic.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Go for it.
Okay, so let me share this. I lost my grandmother, and then somebody said, "Sorry for your loss. She's old anyway. So sooner or later she would go." Just like that, you know.
Wow.
Uh-huh. And then somebody else is also said, "Oh, sorry for your loss. Losing a loved one is a very bad thing that happens to you." So you see, these two. Can I say that the first one is cognitive, and then the second one is empathetic?
Absolutely.
Sorry, emotional.
You nail it. You nail it beautifully. You nail it beautifully. Because at the end of the day, the first one was just being sympathetic and doesn't care. But the second one is letting you know that losing a loved one can be a painful thing. So that person is actually telling you that I am putting myself in your shoes. Right? And I see Captain Betty mentioned here, you are right. I called my dad because he's an ex-serviceman, right? So you could see the expression because your dad can appreciate being promoted into a rank of a captain. Especially if your dad never got to a rank of a captain and you got there. You can see the emotional empathy being expressed there. Right? And I see Idris mentioned here, Prof, with emotional empathy, you take a lot of everyone's stress. Well, true, but not necessarily taking on their stress. Because you see, emotional empathy is feelings. You naturally feel for what people are going through. Recently, those of you in Accra, there was, and I think some part of Ghana, there was a huge flood. People lost properties. You may live in a place where nothing of yours was affected. In fact, some of you were even watching World Cup and never cared about what happens to the people who were impacted by the flood. But those who were not even affected, but yet they felt so bad of what has happened, were actually showing emotional empathy. Hope in this class share with me from his background what was happening. I live 10,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. I shared empathy with him that, oh my goodness, I pray everyone was safe. I pray that properties lost will be restored. I pray that government will compensate people. You see, that is when you are showing emotional empathy. And Joy said that I lost my mom years ago, and the friend told me, oh Joy, God giveth and God taketh. Cognitive empathy. I love when students get the memo right. You got it right there. Right? Because don't you also know that God gives and God takes? We all do. We all know that God gives and God takes. So why are you telling me that is not what I'm looking for? When I have lost a loved one, that is not what I am looking for. Right? Because we all know that God gives and God takes. We have no life of our own. Right? I would have preferred that that person said to Joy, death can be a painful thing. I am sorry for your loss. God knows best. Please be strong. We are here with you. We will support you. You will never be alone. That person is then showing what it means to be emotional, empathetic. Right? And I see Captain Tabitha say, this statement made me to even cry more when I lost my dad. Yes. Yes. Right? And Harrison mentioned that I always thought empathy was about understanding what people feel and seeing things from their perspective so that you can help them through what they are going through. However, today's class has taught me that empathy can sometimes be good if it can and it can sometimes be bad. It can lift up, demoralize you, or give you a sense of belonging. Thank you so much for learning something. It means you are paying attention. Harrison, you are making my day. I feel like dancing, so, and celebrating the win, because what you shared is the core of what I am teaching. Because many people, some of you may or may not know that cognitive, that emotional or empathy has 3 types. Many people thought empathy is empathy. That is why I always say to my students, be very careful with definitions, because the definition of empathy can mislead you to think that it's always about people stepping in people's shoes and feeling the way they feel. But today we have learned in class that you can feel the way people feel without necessarily sharing in their feelings. And then you can equally express empathy when it does not directly affect you, but you take full responsibility of it. I hope this class is making you learn something new. Thank you so much for that comment, Harrison. I appreciate that. It's really, really detailed, and I thank God for that. Right? So this is the 2 that you have learned. We are now going to dive into the 3rd type of empathy. And the 3rd part of empathy, it's what I will consider as compassionate empathy. Compassionate empathy. Remember, compassionate empathy is a combination of all the empathy together to form a compassionate empathy. Listen carefully. I'm going to tell you something interesting here. Compassionate empathy combines understanding and feeling with a decision to act. So pay attention. It combines understanding, which is cognitive, and feelings, which is emotional. With the feeling and a decision to act. It moves beyond just comprehending or feeling to actually doing something to support a person. Please understand carefully. An example on your screen. You notice a new employee struggling to understand a complex software system. You not only understand their frustrations and perhaps feel some of the frustration yourself, but you also decided to offer help. This is the reason why I told Mary that even though she thought she was offering an empathy or an emotional empathy, she was actually offering a compassionate empathy. What will a response look like? I see you are having trouble with the new system. I remember how overwhelming it felt when I first started it. Let me help you with that. I will be more than happy to walk you through step by step. So please, class, understand that even in relationships, noticing that your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your spouses, noticing that one of them is overwhelmed by the week, you do not just say, I understand. No. You quietly take 2 of their tasks off their list. So, an example, my wife comes home from work. I told all of you, my wife, she's a chartered accountant. She's also a principal auditor for the U.S. Department of Justice. She gets overwhelmed when she's auditing millions of dollars of Department of Justice's accounts, especially for those in drug enforcement. And as a chartered accountant, she's responsible to ensure that she works with KPMG to balance all their books. She gets home very exhausted and tired. And she begins to vent on me, the innocent, poor Dr. Jacobs-Abbey. What do I do? Knowing what I know about empathy, I said to her, honey, you know what? Can I bring a bowl with warm water in it so that I'll remove your shoes and put your 2 feet in the bucket? And don't worry, I will wash all the dishes. And do you want me to prepare you something light just to gain some energy? And then we can see what will happen for the rest of the night. My friends, this is compassionate empathy. The question I'm asking you now, we began the class by asking you, what was your default? What was your default empathy? I'm asking the same question again. Based on what you have learned now, please, 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 in order for you, again, and I will never stop telling you this, for you to benefit and to learn, you are not pleasing me. You are not pleasing your classmate. You are being honest to yourself. I'm asking the question again. What is your default style of empathy? The fact that we have said that cognitive is manipulative doesn't mean that if you are a cognitive person, you feel shy for saying that. If you say that, you are not learning. There is nothing wrong knowing what you got to know. So my question to every one of you again, please put in the chat, are you, or what is your default style again, based on what you have known now? Are you a cognitive? Are you an emotional or a compassionate, empathetic person? Your answer doesn't matter to me. What matters most is what you think of yourself. So let me hear you in the chat. In the chat. In the chat. In the chat. Let me hear you in the chat. I see compassionate. I see compassionate. I see compassionate. I see compassionate. The rest of you, let me hear from you. Because I see compassionate. I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. I see compassionate. I see compassionate. So everyone is a compassionate, empathetic person. I love it. As long as you are very honest, I see emotional. Thank you, Idrisu. And I say compassionate again. Again, whatever position you are, I am excited for you. As far as you are honest with your position. Because remember, what I am saying here is that a compassionate combines both cognitive and emotional. And so, please be honest with yourself and keep this as part of your resources. So I expect that when people come to you at work, or without they even coming to you, but you see they are struggling over something, and you do nothing, then remember you are deceiving yourself to be a compassionate person. You are not. For Captain Tabitha and Captain Betty, if you see one of your junior officers struggling with their work in the hospital, and you wait for them to ask you before you step in to provide them direction, you are not compassionate, as you said. And I see Dominic said, learning these styles, I noticed that I have something blended in them. Yes, it happens. That is the reason why you can dominate either cognitive, which is situational. If the matter doesn't care about you, if you don't care about it, you can be cognitive there. If you're really an emotional person, you will show an emotions. And if you are, how do you call it? If you are compassionate, all of them will be combined. And again, class, I want you to understand that cognitive empathy is not a bad thing. Even though the description makes it appear so. Let me give you a practical example here. If you are a police officer, if you are a military officer, if you are a law enforcement officer, FBI, CIA, BNI, your default strategy will always be cognitive, because you can empathize with a situation without being attached to the situation. Because you cannot be a military officer and be an emotional, empathetic officer on your job. You will lose your job. Your job is to arrest somebody. Whether the person was right or wrong, your job is to arrest the person. It is up to the court to determine whether or not the person was right or wrong. So understand, and that's why I don't want any of you to think that the description given to cognitive is so bad, and so even if you are cognitive, you are hiding from it. If this is very clear, I want to make sure it's well understood. Please give me a thumbs up to make sure that clarification is well understood. Thank you. Very important. I don't want to miss that opportunity, because you need to recognize that. You need to recognize that. Those of you men here, if your wife come home exhausted, tired, and you still expect them in their tiredness to go do homework with their children, in their exhausting, you still want them to go cook. If you ever put yourself as compassionate, empathetic person here, I want you to go and change it. You are not. I'm being honest here. as a professor, as a father, as a lecturer, I must be honest with you. If you have put yourself here as compassionate leader, and yet your spouse so exhausted and tired, and yet you sit down and take the remote and watch TV and start saying, "Now, Abna, ready," or "When is the food going to be ready?" You are not a compassionate, empathetic person. Go and remove that thing from there and put yourself where you belong. Because we just said in class that when you notice that your spouse is overwhelmed, maybe with the children, you have 3 children, 2 children, 1 children, 5 children, 10 children, 15 children, and you have to deal with all of them, managing homework, taking them bath, dropping them at school, picking them. By the time you come home to do your own work, you are overly exhausted. And yet, your husband is holding, or your partner is holding a remote and watching sports and asking food. If you are a man in this class and you put yourself as compassionate, I'm authorizing you to go and change it. You are not. The same is applicable to the women. Your husband gets home exhausted, tired. Oh my goodness, honey, it's been a long day. I am tired, exhausted. And all you could do is, remember the last time I was asking you about that money? You are not a compassionate wife. You are not a compassionate person. At that time, you need to meet the husband at the door, start removing his tie, take his tie, his bag, put it down, start, say, honey, you must be very exhausted. Go take shower. I'll prepare something for you to eat. When the finish, come and sit by you. Oh, so tell me, how has your day been? You look exhausted. What is going on? You want me to rub your legs? This is what you do. And for those of you who are married, when your husband start rubbing your back, or your wife start rubbing your back, say, "Hey, I'm tired, I want to sleep." You are not compassionate. You are being selfish. This is the whole purpose of marriage, so that you can also have some stress releases when the time is appropriate. I said something. Let me move away from there before I get into trouble. Adima said all 3 are important. Making use of them at the right and place and is the key. Yes, that is why I said it is situational. It is situational. Thank you so much. I hope somebody is learning, and you are all learning as well. Let's move on. Let's go into the neuroscience of empathy. The neuroscience of empathy. Now, understand this. In our brain, we have something that we call the mirror neurons. Now, the mirror neurons gives the brain a built-in stimuli of other people. Please pay attention here. I'm talking about neuroscience here. I've dived into my element of learning and studies here. The mirror neurons, those of you who are medical students who deal with a lot of medical stuff, psychology, you know what I'm talking about here. The mirror neuron gives the brain a built-in stimuli of other people. And then there is also another called the interior, and we call it the interior insula, right? And the interior singular cortex. What they do is that they fire both of our own pain and for witness pain, which is why another person's distress can physically hurt you. Right? This is the reason why another person's hurt can physically hurt you. So understand that cognitive empathy uses prefrontal mentalizing network. Emotional empathy uses the limbic system, which is why two can be developed somewhat independently. So empathy is plastic. It is a trainable capability, not a fixed trait. So when you see the structure, you observe, you mirror, you feel, you understand, and you respond. An example will be in the workplace, for instance. A technical, brilliant manager or supervisor who is low on natural warmth can still build a strong cognitive empathy through deliberate perspective talking routines. And Dr. Avis, if you follow, you realize that the question you asked, this is where the answer is coming from. That a technically brilliant manager with low on natural warmth can still build strong cognitive empathy, deliberate perspective talking, through deliberate perspective talking. In relationships, as we've been engaging throughout this class, couples who practice daily check-in are literally strengthening the neutral circuit of attunements, habits, and rewire their instincts. So this is the reason why your level of engagement with each other is critical. So engagement question for everyone in the chat. If empathy is trainable like a muscle, pay attention. And I want you to understand this. When we were studying personality psychology, I was very clear that in personality psychology, you are born with, because that becomes your personality traits. In empathy, you learn. And so if empathy is trainable like a muscle, what has been training you lately and what has been letting it atrophy? Right? Pay attention to the things around you and train yourself in a manner that you will be able to grow in it. Any question so far? Any contribution? Any suggestion before we dive into the second half of the class and we will be done? Good. So if there are no questions, I will assume that so far we have done very well in understanding the types of empathy. So now, why is empathy important? In fact, let me move the slide from there and ask you. Please put in the chat. Thank you, Ivy. I appreciate it. Thank you. Why is empathy important? Please put in the chat. Why is empathy important? Of all that we have studied, right? We've gone for an hour, almost 2 hours. Why is empathy important? Please put in the chat. Why is empathy important? Please put in the chat so that we don't waste too much time, then we can finish early. To build relationships, one. Who else? Why is empathy important? Why is empathy important? Gives job satisfaction and aid in rendering quality care. Thank you. Two more thoughts so we can move on. We want to finish the slide as quickly as possible so that we can go enjoy the rest of our afternoon. Two more thoughts, please. Two more thoughts. Anyone else? excellent relationships, helps create a pleasant environment. It improves decision quality. Thank you all for sharing that, right? So, everything that all of you have said is right. You could see them somewhere in this slide that I have shared here. So, empathy is so important because it helps build confidence for the people you are leading and the people you are working with. Right? Very important. So please make sure that you factor that in your processes. So here is a business case for empathy. Empathy is not a soft extra, as I said. It is a measurable driver of the hard outcomes. Catalyst 21 said that figures on innovations, right? So which means that it's found that 61% of employees with highly empathetic senior leaders reported being innovative at work versus 13% with less empathetic leaders. So if you are a manager here, if you are a supervisor, if you don't see innovations at work, it means that you are not being empathetic enough. Engagement. In the same research, 76% of people with empathetic leaders reported being engaged compared to 32% under less empathetic leaders. When you have leaders who are empathetic, there is natural engagement. Tell me, how do you feel if your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse engages with you, talk to you on a daily basis, exchange pleasantries, take a walk with you, go eat dinner, go to the movies, eat some ice cream together, check on you when you are at work? Please don't make the class boring. Share with us in the platform. How do you feel? How do you feel? We are challenging the research from Catalyst 21 because Catalyst 21 says that 76% of people with empathetic leaders, spouses, friends are more engaged as compared to 32% with less empathetic people. Ivy says you feel valued. Who else? Who else? I see loved and feelings. Please let me hear from you. You guys have left the class, so Ivy, Captain Tabitha, and Idrisu. I need the rest of you to engage. Please. You feel belonging and you feel loved. What else? The rest of you, let me hear from you. Bella, let me hear from you. Nigeria, let me hear from you. The rest of you, I feel amazing, valued, and loved. Right? Dr. Kodo said, I feel appreciated. Right? And Mary says, good mood. Yes. So if this is in fact what a research is showing, then I want you to pay attention carefully of the people around you. If the people around you don't feel the same way, then you are not being empathetic enough. The same way, if you are a manager, a supervisor, and here I'm talking to folks like GM, Dominic and co. If your team members if you don't get 76% of engagement of a team member in your work at Sonotech, and those of you in Moles, if you don't get 76% of engagement from your team members, some leader in your group, it's not being empathetic. And then you will also come to realize that empathetic leadership is consistently linked to lower turnover intentions and strong feelings for inclusion, especially for women and underrepresented groups. That is why you Listen, when I go to a place and somebody tells me that I have worked here 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, it means that there is a leader among the people who has been empathetic to manage the turnover. Because most people, as you may know by research, most people, as you will know by research now, ends up leaving their job not because they don't like the job. They leave the job because they don't like their leaders and supervisors. If this is true, give me a thumbs up. Most people leave their job not because they don't like the work, but they leave the job because they don't like their supervisors and their managers. That is the reason for retention. And so if you work in a place where you keep losing people, and then you keep asking yourself, you train all these people, and after you have trained them, then they leave. They don't just leave. Somebody is not being empathetic enough for them to be able to remain. Managers in this class, I am talking to you, pay attention. When you equip people and they leave, you are not being empathetic enough. And then we said customer and strategy, because design thinking begins with empathizing phase. Firm that deeply understand customers' point of view out of innovate, and those that only analyze spreadsheets. What is it that our people are looking for? Right? So the question that I want to ask every one of you, thank you, Dominic. Which of these 4 outcomes matters most in your organization right now? Those of you in KMA, those of you in Moles, those of you in Sonotech, those of you who are independent, which of these 4 matters most in where you work? Innovation, engagement, retention, customer service. Which of them matters most for you? Which of this matters most for you? Think about it. All right. So to every opportunity, there are some setbacks. So we are going to look at some of the setbacks or barriers to empathy. Some of the barriers to empathy, right? Some of the barriers to empathy include cognitive biases, stereotyping, lack of active listening, overemphasizing on self-perspectives, and emotional burnout. These are some of the things that you will appreciate as you go forward. Cognitive bias, it makes you assume we already know. That is why Adima said in class that assumption will rob you of great opportunities. Stereotyping, replace the person with a category into a category. Poor listening means we hear words but we miss the meaning. Right? Self-focus crowds our curiosity, and burnout empties the tank entirely. This is important. And I want you to pay attention as we dive into them. A good example, after years of working together, spouses often stop listening because they are sure they already know what the other will say. Familiarity becomes the barrier. Those of you are married. Dr. Kudo, I know you are a pastor, you are married, but please confirm to us whether what I'm saying is right or wrong. After years of marrying together, or being with your spouse, we often stop listening because we are very certain and we are very sure that we already know what the other person will say.
That's very true.
Right? And that familiarity becomes a barrier in our relationships with people. So I am encouraging everyone in class as we are learning. Please, 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 please. Look, I have been around for a while. Many people in ministry have not been able to receive God's grace, anointing, and leadership mantles because they became very familiar with the people around them. I tell folks all the time, I may be a very good friend of you. I may be a mentor to you. I may be a father to you. I may be a close pal to you, even equal. The moment you become familiar with me, there is a barrier. And so I want to encourage each one of you, even with your spouses, with your family, don't become familiar with each other. Otherwise, you will erect a battle. All right, great. Now, how do you overcome barriers in empathy? You have to practice mindfulness. You have to challenge the assumptions. Many of you don't challenge assumptions. You need to improve your active listening skills. Right? When you are a manager, a supervisor, before dismissing a junior colleague's idea, a leader, a manager must deliberately ask, what will you have to be true for this idea to be right? What will have to be true for this idea to be right? Don't dismiss it. In relationships, a couple institute a simple rule during disagreement. Each person must restate the other person's view to their satisfaction before responding. I'm giving you some tidbits in marriage here. In order to avoid barrier, when you are a couple, you need to institute a simple rule during disagreement. Each person must restate the other person's view to their satisfaction before responding. Do you know what you are doing? You are craving that you were listening, you were understanding, and you are repeating it to each other. Now, how do you develop a listening? Free counseling, free counseling. Yes, free counseling. Those of you who have not bought my book, all these things are in my books. Now, developing empathy by active listening. Right? The first practical skills in this course include the active listening. How do you listen actively? You must provide or give full attention. You must use the non-verbal cues. You must paraphrase to confirm. And then you must ask an open-ended questions to validate listening. So what is active listening? According to Carl Rogers, active listening is the practice of preparing to listen. Everyone, please pay attention. It is the practice of preparing to listen. So, if you have not prepared to listen, you are not even listening. Preparing to listen, observing what verbal and non-verbal messages are being sent. I hope somebody is paying attention. And providing appropriate feedback for the sake of showing attentiveness to the message being presented. How many of you have spoken to your spouses, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your managers are talking to you and they said, you are not listening? How many of you have had an experience that either you say or they say to you, you are not listening? And then you go, I'm listening. I'm listening. And then they say, you are not listening. The reason they say you are not listening is because, remember what I said, active listening begins with what? Preparing to listen. And not only preparing to listen, observing the verbal and non-verbal cues in the message and providing appropriate feedback for the sake of showing attentiveness. How do you give appropriate feedback for the sake of showing attentiveness? Please either put in the chat or come up to speak. How do you show appropriate feedback for showing attentiveness? Please share in the chat. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Can we do that quickly so that we can move up? We are getting to the wrap-up stage. Can we do that quickly? We have just 4 slides and we are done. Can we do that quickly? What do you do to show appropriate feedback for the sake of showing attentiveness to a message being presented? Did I lose everyone? I see high contact, responding when needed, paying attention, give appropriate feedback to the situation. Right? Not ask questions. These are all things that you can use to show that you are actually listening and paying attention. Right? Great. So because of time, let's watch a quick video on active listening. Once we come back from the video, we'll just be getting ready to wrap up. So please watch this video.
Are you a good listener? No, really. Are you? You might think you are because you stay silent while they're talking, nod your head and say, mm-hmm, and repeat back word for word what you heard them say. This has been standard management advice on good listening for ages. But what if I told you that following these tips could leave the listener feeling unheard or even dismissed? The truth is that mastering the art of listening involves a whole host of other skills. You need to do more. In this video, you'll learn techniques that will help you in both professional and personal relationships. Are you ready to be not just a good listener, but a great one? Let's get started. The first step, after putting away all distractions like cell phones and laptops, is to recognize that listening is an active, non-competitive, two-way interaction. Authors Jack Zenger and Joseph Folkman write that we shouldn't be passive, like a sponge, merely absorbing information. Instead, we need to be active listeners, like a trampoline, giving the speaker's thoughts height, acceleration, energy, and amplification. But how do you become a so-called trampoline listener? First, it's important to ask yourself, how do I usually listen? Maybe you're typically task-oriented, focused on efficiency, or analytical, aiming to analyze problems from a neutral perspective, or relational, building connections and responding emotionally, or critical, perhaps judging both the content and the speaker. You may, out of habit, default to one of these styles in most situations. But if you then ask yourself, why do I need to listen right now? You may realize that a different mode or a combination of modes is better suited for this moment? Is a family member in need of emotional support, or a coworker hoping for an honest critique? Reflecting on the goals of each conversation, what you want and what the speaker needs, will help you determine the best way to listen. This question can also remind us to listen without an agenda, so we can process what the other person is saying without formulating a response. At some point in the conversation, you'll likely have to share your perspective, but for now, take in what they have to say without thinking about what you'll say next. Another question to ask is, who is the focus of attention in the conversation? Sharing your own personal stories can establish connection and validation, but you don't want to steer the conversation away from the speaker in a way that makes them feel dismissed or unheard. Also, you can ask, what am I missing? Remember, good listening is much more than nodding, saying, mm-hmm, and parroting back what you heard the person say. In reality, speaking up and asking good questions signals to the speaker that not only have you heard what they said, but you understood it enough to want more information. It can also profoundly change the conversation if you pay attention to verbal and nonverbal cues that may reveal that the speaker has more to say than what appears at face value. They may be uncertain about sharing vulnerability, or they may not even realize that they're expressing unexamined emotions. Asking questions based on what may have been left unsaid can show the other person that you are listening deeply. It can make them feel supported and lead to insight for both of you. Here's an example. An employee tells you, I'm worried about my presentation for the board meeting. You might try to naturally reassure and relate by saying something like, oh, you're going to be great. It took me years before I could present without being nervous. Unfortunately, while you're attempting to make a connection here, that kind of response can actually dismiss their concerns without inviting further detail. It ignores what might be an important issue underlying their statement and switches the focus to you. To show that you're listening in a deeper way, you can say something like, I was nervous when I started presenting too. What's worrying you? Big difference, right? When trying to be a better listener, another good question to ask yourself is, am I getting in my own way? All too often, we prevent ourselves from being able to listen deeply because of our own insecurities or head trips. We might be emotionally uncomfortable or worry about how confident and prepared we seem to the other person. With practice, quieting that internal monologue will leave space to actually hear what's being said by the other person. So far, we've been talking about how anyone can be a better listener. But if you're a senior leader where much more is at stake, good listening is an imperative skill. It's wise to ask, am I in an information bubble? Many leaders find themselves in those information bubbles because employees are afraid of questioning, challenging, second-guessing, or disappointing them. They may spin information in a positive light to avoid tough conversations with leadership. As Kevin Scherer, former CEO and chairman of Amgen, said, if you walk around and see a bunch of smiling faces and say, gee, everybody looks happy to me, you're not listening. Leaders must develop the discipline to listen purely for comprehension, without judgment, agenda, or distraction, and actively seek input from all levels and ranks. Also, creating an atmosphere that prioritizes trust over hierarchy means anybody can feel comfortable sharing information, whether it's good or bad. Okay, let's review. Most conversations would benefit if we could be active, supportive, trampoline listeners instead of passive information sponges. To do this, you can ask yourself, how do I usually listen? Reflecting on your default listening style can help you assess how to improve your listening skills. Why do I need to listen right now? Thinking about what the other person might need from your conversation can provide clues as to how you can best listen at that moment. Who is the focus of attention in the conversation? Be careful sharing your own experiences in an attempt to connect. You don't want to steer the conversation away from what the speaker is trying to say. What am I missing? Ask good questions, not only about what is said, but what may be left unsaid. Am I getting in my own way? Be careful not to let your own internal monologue prevent you from truly being able to listen deeply. And for our current and future senior leaders out there, ask, am I in an information bubble? Practice listening purely for comprehension and create an environment where employees have opportunities to share feedback and feel comfortable doing so. Thanks for watching. All of the strategies that I've shared today are based on HBR articles linked below. Do you have your own strategies for becoming a better listener? Or is there a topic you want us to cover in a future HBR video? Comment below. We're listening. Bye.
Alrighty. So this is a video from the Harvard Business School. What do you guys think? What do you think? Anything that stood out for you? Is there a moment that caught your attention? Let me hear your thoughts. Anything you can put in the chat. Anything that caught your attention in this particular video. Anything? I say prepare to listen. I say prepare to listen. What else? I say prepare to listen. What else? Who is the focus of attention in the conversation? Very important. Very, very important. Right? Very important. The kind of question the listener asks makes a lot of difference. Yes. Yes. Those of you who are around me, you know, I'll ask you so many questions that if you're not careful, you'll even be very bored with me, because the power of questions helps you to get the conversation going. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. For want of time, we'll continue to move forward. So here are some of the hallmarks of active listening. When taking an active approach to listening, it is very important to make sure that you ensure that some of these characteristics shows up: acceleration, amplification, clarification, energy, and height. Why is this important? They are all important because it helps you to know exactly what the focus is in relationships, right? It's very important. Then developing the skills number 2. So we talk of active listening. The second skills you need to learn is what we call perspective talking. Perspective talking, right? Now, understand perspective talking. So perspective talking, it's something very important. Now, if I want to present it in a scenario format, right? You look at where you have a member of your team missing some deadlines and stuff like that. And so in order for you to have a very good perspective talking, you need to pay attention to the strategy to address the problem. Imagine yourself in another person's situation. Why is this person lately having these problems? Why is he behaving this way? Why is he missing deadlines? Right? Consider cultural and personal differences in perspective talking. I think in week 1, I mentioned to this class that if I come to Ghana, Sierra Leone, or any part of Africa, especially in Western and Eastern Africa, and I see a woman standing in front of his house and smoking marijuana or cigar, it will be unheard of because of the culture. When you come to America, they will even give you a stick to smoke. It's our culture here. Everybody smokes. So perspective, right? And avoid judgment, right? Avoid judgment. So, and a practical example in relationship, we'll look at it like a spouse get quiet during conflict, maybe stonewalling, or may have grown up in a home where when you raise your voice, it is dangerous for them, and so they shut down. Perspective talking is ask which story fits this person. Why is it that suddenly she has kept quiet? Why is it that anytime I scream, she doesn't respond? Perspective talking, very important. The third part is developing emotional awareness. We talk about emotional awareness in detail, right? So to do that, you need to recognize the name of the emotions you yourself you are experiencing. I think in week 1 and 2, we talk 1, 2, and 3, we talk deeply about those emotional awareness, understanding the things that triggers your emotions. We talk about emotional awareness. And what is emotional awareness? We said that emotional awareness means being able to recognize when emotions are present. If you cannot recognize when emotions are present, then you are not aware of the emotions as they are happening. So that's why we use the Planchard wheel to help you name your own emotions. And I think last week or two, we went into deeper into it, your ability to recognize which emotions you are reflecting. Empathy in action, real life situations here. So in a workplace, a normal vocal team member has gone quiet in a meeting for 2 weeks. This is how you respond without empathy. You label them disengaged and criticize their attitude in the next few reviews. But with empathy, you notice the change. You ask privately, how are they doing? And listen before judging. You learn they are caring for a sick parent. That is the reason why something has shifted in them. The same is applicable in relationships. Your spouse come home drained and started venting about their day. Without empathy, you interrupt with a solution, or worse, compare yours to their own. Man, I also went through a hell of hell today. With empathy, you put your phone down, you listen fully, name what you heard, and ask, do you want some ideas or just you want to hear? Then you are being very empathetic. Right? And this is our last video. After this video, trust me, we have ended the class. So let's move forward because of our time. We need to wrap up now. Empathy as a strategy for leadership. So remember, empathy is a negotiation tool. When you use the cognitive empathy, it reveals the interest behind the other side stated position, expanding the zone for possible agreement. So you can use empathy from the cognitive perspective as a strategic tool for negotiation. It is also used for change management. Empathy maps the real source of resistance. People support what they help create and they feel understood in it. Then it's a talent strategy. People rarely leave companies. They leave managers who do not see them. Empathetic one-on-one retention infrastructure. It's a strategy that you need to use. And then decision quality. Emotional data is still a data. Leaders who read the room integrate information that spreadsheet cannot capture. So this is a strategy that you can utilize. And then finally, how do we measure empathy? Again, you can never beat feedback from people. So use the feedback, take emotional quotient test like some of you have done in the past, and also pay attention to behavioral observations, right? And then what you need to do as a plan of action going forward, rate yourself from 1 to 10, whether you are cognitive, emotional, compassionate, and which one is your weakness. 2, identify one barrier from today, your biases, your distractions, your self-focus, or burnout that most limit your empathy. Choose one skill to practice this week. Is it active listening? Is it perspective talking? Or is it emotional awareness? And pick one person, a colleague or a family member with whom you will deliberately practice this with. If everything that we have said is true, this is our takeaway from the class. Our takeaway is that empathy is a bridge between understanding people and inspiring them. Cognitive, emotional, and compassionate empathy are distinct skills. Every leader must have all three. Empathy is not sympathy. It means standing with people, not above them. The brain wired for empathy, and deliberate practice strengthens the wiring. That is why we said it is a muscle train. Empathy drives hard outcomes, innovations, engagement, retention, and better decisions. And finally, the same skills that retain your best employees also deepens their marriages. To that point, any question, any contribution, anything whatsoever anyone want to add before we call it a day?